I'm going to introduce to you first a brother that needs really no introduction here at the Good Life. Runoko Rashidi has been our resident scholar for all of 1995, and I'm sure we're going to have him back again in that capacity. Brother Runoko Rashidi is author of many works, many publications, including this book, which I would hope by now you all have in your library, The African Presence in Early Asia.
Don't say that, because if they all have it, then they won't want to buy another copy.
Well, I said I would hope that you would have it. Now, if you don't have it, we have some more tonight. I was getting to that point, brother. Okay?
I'm enthusiastic.
And it is co-edited by the world-renowned scholar Ivan van Sertima. Brother Rashidi has also authored the book Dalits, The Black Untouchables of India. And the afterword to it, okay. And again, these books will be available tonight for you to purchase and take home and study, because these are little known areas of study in terms of African influence, especially here in the United States. And I would hope that all of you would purchase them if you do not have them. And as brother said, if you just feel so good you got to get another one, he's available for that too. Brother Rashidi has been a voice that many of us have grown familiar with over the airways. First on Pacifica KPFK, being a frequent guest many times on audio tape of Kwaku Lin when he was hosting Spirit Flight. And more recently on the front page, we have heard Brother Rashidi many times talking about different aspects to our plight as a people. And so without further ado, I'm going to allow Brother Rashidi to set the tone for tonight's program, and he will in turn introduce the guests. So I would like for all of you to stand on your feet, because you know we encourage you to stand for our guests here at the Talking Drum Community Forum. And let's give our brother a black hand. Dr. Runoko Rashidi. We're going to use that box, but we'll take care of it. Good. Set the tone for the night, brother. Hold on. Go ahead. I'll get you another. Go ahead. The tape is rolling.
All right. Hotel brothers and sisters.
You're a little destructive tonight.
I gotta control that by energy level. Okay. Good evening, brothers and sisters. Hotep. Are y'all subdued tonight? Hotep, brothers and sisters. Good.
1 second. Brother, we don't allow photos in here. No, we do not allow photos in here. Okay? No, sir. If you want a documentation, you get the video next week. That's all. I'll talk to you outside, brother, okay?
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm very, very pumped up tonight, very enthusiastic. But in the African tradition, you have to acknowledge the elders and seek permission of the elders to begin to speak. So I would like to acknowledge all of the elders in the audience tonight and request your permission to begin the program. Do I have your permission? Very good. I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm grateful that we have such a large turnout. Can everybody hear me all the way in the back effectively? I'm grateful to the Good Life, and of course my esteemed brother, Jamal Gorey.
You're indebted for him now.
Yeah, I am indebted right now. Maybe that cancel out the money you owe me.
Breaking up stuff, bro.
Okay. I could have held it because it's going to fall. Let me just hold it. There you go. Little comedic overtones to begin the presentation. But in a way, maybe that's good. Because the subject matter that we're dealing with is really very brutal. You see, I don't have any notes, because this is something I've been preparing for about 10 years to do this kind of talk. I'm going to introduce the first part of the program but tonight's presentation will focus on the African presence in India, but specifically it will focus on what are called the black untouchables of India. Now, I was talking to somebody last night. I'm grateful to have had a chance with Brother Velu to be on Intervisions a couple nights ago and front page yesterday. And I was talking to somebody about the untouchables, and they told me that they had in turn discussed it with somebody else, and they said that they thought they were talking about Al Capone and Elliot Ness, you know, when it comes to the untouchables, right? But tonight we're talking about the black untouchables, and that means, as I understand it, that the very touch, in some cases the voice, or even the shadow of these black people in India is supposed to cause pollution or contamination. And the black folks that we're talking about tonight are, without question, to me, the most oppressed people in the world. Not the most oppressed black people in the world, which says a lot right there, but the most oppressed people on the planet. Now, you've heard all kinds of horror stories in the good life. I was fortunate a few months ago to have the opportunity to introduce a black woman from Australia. She's named Grace Smallwood. And she talked about her own personal experiences and what it meant to be a so-called Australian Aborigine. The fact that when the British came in the late 1700s, black people in Australia began to be used as target practice, or they were murdered to be used as dog food. And in some parts of Australia, even until the 1960s, like in Queensland, Australia, black people, it is said, were not allowed to wear shoes. That European convicts, because those were the white folks who settled Australia, would oftentimes play a game with black infants, and they would take the mother, and they would take a black family. And it's nice to see we have some families here tonight. I'm a family man myself now, I'm happy to say. They would take a family of black people, and they would murder the father or the husband. But before that, they would rape, you know, his wife in front of him. And then they would take the man's head, the black man's head, they would decapitate it, and then somehow or another fix a rope and tie the head around the widow's neck as they repeatedly sexually assaulted her. And then while the mother was still alive, I want you to hear what I'm saying, they would take infants and bury them up to their neck in the sand, and then stand back and, like a football, take turns to see who could kick the heads off the black babies the farthest. This is a game. They used nuclear testing against black people in Australia. Until 1967, black people in Australia were counted as part of the flora and fauna. Did you hear me? Until 1967, black people in Australia were not counted as humans. They were counted as part of the flora and fauna. So, you know, we've suffered. We've suffered over here. We've suffered all over Africa. But in India, the suffering has been that intense, that extreme, or more. But what makes it different is that it has been going on for something like 3,000 years. So that the indoctrination of inferiority as applied to black people in general and black untouchables in particular are unprecedented. Let me read you a bit, and I'm going to deal with the history. But let me just read a little bit about what the life of the black untouchable was like. I'm reading from this work here that I edited, The African Presence in Asia, which has contributions by a black man named V.T. Rajshekar, the person that wrote this book. I did not write this book, I wrote the afterword to it. And Velu supplied the photographs. And by the way, this is, on the cover of the book is a black woman from South Central India. And she's in tears, as you can see. And it says on the cover, the outside world hardly knows in India there's a 3,000-year-old problem called untouchability. And when you come to know the real facts, you will be in tears. So if we had a little laughter earlier, it may be good to kind of lighten the mood, because it's a very brutal story, and it's not for the faint-hearted. I went to India on a historic trip in 1987 in October, and I tell you, for 6 months, I was just terribly depressed, moping around, just seeing the reality of our people there. Let me read a bit about what the life was like for the untouchables. The existence of untouchability has been justified within the context of Hindu religious thought as the ultimate and logical extensions of karma and rebirth. karma and rebirth. Hindus believe that persons are born untouchable because of the accumulation of sins in previous lives. For caste Hindus, any physical contact with an untouchable was regarded as polluting. During certain periods in Indian history, untouchables were only allowed to enter the adjoining Hindu communities at night. And indeed, the untouchables' very shadows were considered polluting, and they were required to beat drums, and I hope you're listening to this now, and make loud noises to announce their approach so other people could scurry out of the way. Until the 1920s in some parts of India, for example, the large West Indian city of Pune, untouchables were not allowed to enter the city limits within the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. because it was thought their shadows would be too long because of the position of the sun. Untouchables had to attach brooms to their backs to erase any evidence of their presence. And cups were tied around their neck to capture any spittle that might escape their lips and contaminate the roads and the streets. So spit came from their lips, the streets would be contaminated. Their meals were consumed from broken dishes, and their clothing was taken from corpses. They were forbidden to learn to read and write, and were prohibited from listening to any of the sacred Hindu texts, the Rig Veda, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, the Brahmanas. Regular access to public wells was denied them. They could not use ornaments, and they were not allowed to enter Hindu temples. You could be killed. Untouchables have been killed within the last few years for merely entering a temple. In some parts of India, as I understand it, there are temples, and there's a ring of stones around the temples, approximately 30 feet or 50 feet from outside the temple walls. And the untouchables are not only not allowed to go inside the temple, they can't go within the ring, because it is thought their shadows will cause the gods in the temples to be polluted. That's the nature of Hinduism. The primary work of untouchables included scavenging and street sweeping, emptying toilets, the public execution of criminals, the disposal of dead animals and human corpses, and the cleanup of cremation grounds, all of which were regarded as impure activities by caste Hindus. The daily life of the untouchables was one, as you can see, of degradation, deprivation, and humiliation. Now, unfortunately, that has not changed very much. Today, for example, the literacy rate among untouchable women is about 7%. So they're kept very uneducated, formally, and no, I won't say uneducated, they're kept illiterate. Untouchables in urban India, in places like Bombay and Calcutta and Madras and Bangalore, are crowded together in squalid slums, while in rural India, where the vast majority of untouchables live, they are exploited as landless agricultural laborers and ruled by terror and intimidation. Every year, within the last 10 years, the amount of atrocities committed by untouchables by the other castes have averaged 10 to 15,000 cases per year. They include gang rape, they include arson, they include murders. It's not unusual to hear about untouchables in India being burned alive. Reminds you very much of what was happening to black people over here in certain periods. I have photographs that were being given to me by members of the government in India where a black boy was burned to death, and I have photographs of his ashes and what have you. You have stories about untouchable children who were forced to eat human excrement as a form of punishment. Velu has an article that he just brought me, and this is not stuff we're making up, that was reproduced from an Indian newspaper, not a dollar newspaper, talking about a sister, a black untouchable woman, who was accused of some sort of very petty crime. And she was accosted by 10 to 15 very strong men and stripped naked and paraded in the street and then made to have sexual intercourse with her own 2 sons. This is 1996, brothers and sisters. So we talk about this and some people say, well, damn, Rashidi, we got problems right here. Why are you talking about something around the world? Because we have a lot of members of our family there. We have 160 million black untouchables of India. The population of black people in India exceeds that. That's more than any one country on earth as far as black folks are concerned, more than Nigeria or Brazil. So that gives it a tremendous significance right there. We are talking about, I think, a global approach. We're talking about looking at things on an international basis. We're talking about defining reality for ourselves as we see it. So it has a relevance because of that, number one. Also, number two, you can see that the major problem, or the reason that untouchability developed, is a result of white supremacy. White people entered India, and over a period of about 1,000 years, after fierce resistance, you all right? Must be something in that root beer. Maybe I need a drink. After fierce resistance, the black folks in India were finally conquered. And in the parts of India that these Europeans conquered, they imposed a rigid caste segment of social order. Now, caste is very important, and all this is the introduction. What I'm going to do in a minute is show some slides so I can show you black people in India, and then I'm going to introduce our special guest and let him talk to you about what it means to be an untouchable, and to talk about who Gandhi was, and to give us precise definition of caste, and then to talk about what we can do, and then we engage in the question and answer period. Caste is a Portuguese word, and it's based on what the Europeans found when they went into India about 300 years ago. And that's what they call the system, caste. The Indians call the system, I believe, Varna. Varna is a classical division of Indian society. And the word Varna means color. So it's clearly racially based. Now, caste is critical in India. It determines, and it's based on what is on birth. It is said that something that you did in another lifetime is determinative as to what your present status in life is going to be. So that generations and generations and generations and generations and generations and generations ago, supposedly you did something, and you're born in this lifetime as a result of that. If you're an untouchable, you're being punished. See? Now that's cold right there. So at least I want to start out with a fighting chance. But if you're an untouchable, it don't matter how big your bank book is, as Velu would say. It don't matter whether you're light skinned or dark skinned. It doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, lawyer, or Indian chief. You are an untouchable first and foremost. Caste determines where you live, the kind of education you receive, who you eat with, who you may marry. It's all encompassing. In parts of India today, in much of India today, it has been said that untouchables are not even allowed to hold up their heads while walking down the street. So that's the kind of issue that we're talking about tonight. Now, what we want to do, after having settled everybody down, I see everybody's somber now, we want to set up the slide projector, and then we'll show you some slides. We'll introduce the subject visually, and then we'll bring on Dr. Velu Annamalai. So I want to thank The Good Life, I want to thank Jamal, and most of all, I want to thank all of you for coming out on this Friday evening. Thank you very much. Is everybody with me? All right, now this will be we'd like to have everybody's attention. I know everybody's enthusiastic, but it's kind of difficult to talk when so many other people are talking. All right, we're going to begin the next aspect of our presentation, which is a visual presentation. And this will kind of introduce the subject visually of the African presence in India. A lot of you have seen me speak before, but there'll be a few new slides here, and some people have never seen this at all, so you bear with me if some of the stuff is a bit repetitious. Now here is a map of the subcontinent of India itself, on where I have marked out in red. That is where the earliest civilization in India developed. Now, black people need to be looked at in three different ways in India, at least from a historical perspective. One is, you have to understand that black people, obviously, most of you probably know this, are the original people on the planet. That humanity originated in Africa and then spread to the rest of the world. So when we talk about the African presence in India, we're referencing all of those black populations that have left Africa and moved into Asia, particularly India, in historic times. And that probably begins about 75,000 years ago. So black people are the aborigines of India. The aboriginal just means native or first. And then that process probably began 50, 60, 70,000 years ago. And then after that, equally important, is it possible to get some water or something to drink, please? Equally important is that you have black people who introduced the elements of civilization into India, and the areas that is marked off there is where that civilization developed. It's called the Indus Valley Civilization because it's located along the banks of the Indus River. And it began about 3,000 years ago. And it was very sophisticated. You have an area marked by hot and cold running water, cities with multiple storied houses, with standard and uniform weights and measures, with locking systems, with cylindrical systems. Apparently black people developed the windmill over there, one of the two major non-muscle sources of power in antiquity. They thank you, brother. They domesticated cotton, and believe it or not, they domesticated the chicken. You know, now that should not be unusual, right? Black people domesticated the chicken, although maybe we shouldn't say that too loud in the good life, right? But that happened there. They had a game similar to dice. They played a game similar to chess. That had a highly sophisticated writing system. Now, okay, let's just leave it at that right now. Well, maybe not. Here also, you have in the center portion of the country, that area is called the Gangetic Plain, because the dominant geographic feature there is the Ganges River. The Ganges River was named after an African king. Supposedly an Ethiopian king named Ganges left Africa with a large army and conquered northern India and left the name of the river behind him. And J. Rogers said that in the 1930s. This area also today is called the Cow Belt, and that is because it is the center, the core of Hindu or Brahmanic religion. Now, in the southern part of the country, you have the area called Dravida. I assume most of you have heard of the Dravidians. The Dravidians are the same people that introduced civilization there, but who were later forced into the southern portions of the country. They have a relationship there like the Nubians of today have to Egypt. The black people, the Nubians in the south, are the ones who developed Egyptian civilization, but now the Arabs have come in and they dominate most of Egypt, and the Nubians are in the south. Interestingly enough, too, about the Nubians, many of them have straight to wavy hair. Naturally straight to wavy hair, very dark-skinned people. So you have black folks in Africa with straight hair and black folks in Asia with straight hair. The little island off the south is the country today called Sri Lanka, where you have black people called Tamils. Tamils are a group of Dravidians. Velu is a Tamil, and those are the folks who are fighting for independence in that little island there called Sri Lanka. Up there, where the red is now known as Pakistan, and on the other side is a country called Bangladesh. So that's a little bit of the geography. This is a cylinder seal from the ancient Indus Valley civilization, and what this shows is a person who is identified as a yogi. So a lot of the concepts and philosophies that we find in the East are of African origin. He's translated as the black buffalo. And one of the things you can see, there's a blue Mustang convertible that's blocking someone. Blue Mustang convertible. I assume I get paid extra for that. Now, he's called the Black Buffalo, and what you see on top is the writing system. And that's called the Indus Valley script. So black people had a writing system there 3,000 years ago. And this sister who I show a lot, and this just out of curiosity, I may have to stop showing this. Raise your hand if you've seen this slide. All right, not too many. I can show it a few more times, I suppose. This is a black woman. A black woman. I didn't have to tell you that, right? How do you know it's a black woman? She got her hand on her hip? Oh, baby. I love that right there. Is that sharply focused? Please. Does it look sharp? It looks sharp. Okay, very good. A black woman, soul sister, African. I use the word African and black interchangeably. See, that gets me in trouble with a lot of folks because they say, Rashidi, I see you talking about black people, but I thought you were going to talk about Africa. See, to me, it's hard for me to make a distinction between black and Africa. What's the difference?
Black
See?
came first.
Okay.
Black came first.
All right, we can talk about that in the Q&A. Now, this is a black woman from the Indus Valley civilization, and this is about 2300 BC. And she looks so much like a modern sister. Okay? Now, what happened? You had this great place. You had black people with all this going on. So three things happened. One is you had the abuse of the environment, exploitation of the environment. In order to build those great cities, there's my brother Kwasi Asafo too. Kwasi came up with an excellent flyer for the program tomorrow night. You know, Velu is going to be at the African Cultural Center tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So thanks for the flyer, brother. It was great. Now, you have, therefore, the destruction, the climate began to change. They cut down all these trees to make all these brick buildings, and over a period of time, thousands of years, the environment was altered. Became very arid. And then there was apparently a over-proliferation of cattle and humans, right? But the other thing is the white man came. And that'll disrupt you every time, okay? Tell me I'm wrong. All right? We get a witness on that one. Now, I know, Cameron, you're going to testify. Now, it's wonderful to be at home and to be around black people that you feel comfortable with. It makes a big difference. Now, you have a huge conflict. You have invading, nomadic, patriarchal, wild, violent, women-hating, children-hating, nomadic white warriors who came into the environment. They were not superior to black people. They were not even necessarily better warriors, but they were very aggressive. They were very warlike. They had domesticated this bow and arrow that was very powerful, called a compound bow, and they also had domesticated the horse. And that gave them great mobility on the battlefield. And over a period of about 1,000 years, they ultimately conquered most of the black people in northern India. And they called the area that they conquered Aryavarta because they called themselves the Aryans or the Aryans. That term originally meant in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is the Indo-European language they introduced. That means glorious. Now, if you ask Velu what it means, he's going to tell you something different, all right? And they conquered these black folks, and these are the remains of some of those original black settlers and civilizers in the Indus Valley. These bones were excavated, I believe, in the 1920s. Now, this is Krishna. Everybody's heard of Krishna, especially Hare Krishna. You go to the airport, they're going to confront you, asking you for some money, like I'm going to in a short time. Now, Krishna here, the name Krishna means black, or the black one, or blue like black clouds or something in every Indian language. And the first time we find him, he's a resistance leader. He's leading the resistance against the Indo-European invasions. I want you to understand that black people always resisted oppression. They always resisted invasion, that it was not an easy conquest. So we find Krishna as a resistance leader, and later on these Indo-Europeans, these Aryans, these white people, they amalgamate with the black folks to some extent, and they take elements and components of that black religion and philosophy. For example, the black folks in ancient India, they worshiped the mother goddess. They saw God all around them. And so in order to conquer them, and to complete the physical conquest, the Indo-Europeans incorporated elements of that religion, of their gods, and they exploited them. So therefore you find Krishna is an integral part of Hinduism, but originally he's a black resistance leader. Is that clear? Good. And this is another depiction. These are black people too, and this is from the cover of my book, as a matter of fact, which I do have some copies and hope you will encourage you to buy a copy. This is from the great Hindu epic, or we call it maybe the infamous Hindu epic, called the Mahabharata. And these are probably black folks fighting in this war with these Europeans. This is supposed to be the deity Vishnu in the form of Krishna, and there are the great warriors down below him, led by Arjuna. This is a deity named Kubera. I took this photograph myself. This is from the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. This is from about the 8th century, okay? And let me show you a couple other historical pieces. This is of a black king from Egypt in the 18th dynasty, one of the most powerful kings of all time. His name is Amenhotep III. And an old Christian writer named Eusebius claims that in the reign of, this is about 2,000 years ago, in the reign of Amenhotep III, a large body, he said, of Ethiopians, by which he meant black people, migrated from near the mouth of the Indus River to the valley of the Nile. So it could be that that represents a Pan-African coalition against those invading Indo-European nomads that were not only sacking India, but much of Western Asia and those other black civilizations at that time. And just to give you an example, just to kind of compare, this is Amenhotep III. This is about 1300 BC, 1350 BC. That's Akhenaten's father. And this is a piece from India about 1,000 years after that, and he represents a phase called the Kushan dynasty. Kush, the Kushan dynasty. See, we have not hardly looked, and this is what intrigued me most about it, we have not hardly looked at this, at India from an African perspective. So to tell a person that there are black folks over there, the largest amount of black folks in any one country on earth, shocks a lot of people. Say, what? I didn't know that. You mean Brazil, don't you? Or Nigeria? No, India. And this is a temple, Elora or Ajanta, which is it, Velu? Elora. And I put this in here because this is on our tour to India. Velu and I are sponsoring an African-centered tour to India that we plan for October this year and October next year. So please get a brochure if you're interested. And this is one of the places we'll visit. This is a Buddhist temple, and it is magnificent. You can see the person down there, and this is carved from the mountain down, carved out of the living rock. And this is a depiction of the Buddha. Velu refers to the Buddha as an African king. Buddhism comes as an attempt to reform Hinduism. It is a religion that places no emphasis on caste. It is a religion where women are very prominent. In Hinduism, women ain't nothing. The Hindus, these Indo-Europeans, introduced this concept called the sati or the sute. And I'll explain it once again. This says that the head of the household, when he died, was supposed to be cremated within a short time. So they will put him on a cremation platform and soak it with flammable liquids. And his oldest son would take a torch and light the funeral pyre. And while the flame was going good and high and hot, it was a function of his widow to jump on the cremation platform and take her own life. So that she could, I heard something there, so she could continue to serve him well into the next life. That was the function of a Hindu woman, or the woman in India. It is said that a female in India is never independent. When she is a child, check this out, because this always gets people on a roll. When she's a child, she belongs to her father. When she grows up and marries, she belongs to her husband. And if she outlives her husband, she belongs to her sons. That she has no existence independent of that. This is a depiction of the Buddha, and this is from Thailand, because this is how far Buddhism spread, clearly an African man. All right, now, once again, the geography. Over here, the Indus Valley Civilization. This is Afghanistan. South India. This is a place called Hyderabad. I spoke at a historic conference there in 1987. Over there is Bangladesh, and over there is China, and all those mountains are the Himalayas, better known as the Himalayas. Now let's look at the people in India today. And these people are all Dalits. They're either tribal people who maintain their integrity today, they're relatively unpolluted, or they're, well, anyway, this is just a panorama of black people in India today. And Velu, if you want to have something to say, by all means, brother, go right ahead. Now, well, okay, let's just go. A bridegroom and a bride. Now, I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. Some of you will have seen some of these slides, but I just want to give you once again an idea to impress upon your mind what we mean when we talk about the black presence in India, or the African presence in India.
Does anyone have a gray Toyota?
Gray Toyota. Block it, somebody. Now, these are all folks from South India, and these are the Dravidians, and this is the area where Marco Polo went. And in Marco Polo's words, he pointed out, it is a fact that in this country, when a child is born, they anoint him once a week with oil of sesame. And this makes him grow much darker than when he was born. For I assure you that the darkest man is here the most highly esteemed and considered better than the others who are not so dark. Let me add that in very truth, these people portray and depict their gods and their idols black and their devils as white as snow. For they say that God and all the saints are black and the devils are all white. That is why they portray them as I have described, and similarly they make the images of their idols all black. Marco Polo went to this area in 1288 and 1293, and that's what he recorded. This is in southeast India. Now, you've seen that brother many times. You've seen him many times? All over the place. You ain't got to go to India to see him. You ain't even got to pass Adams to see him. You can stay right here on Exposition in Crenshaw. Right? And tonight? Okay. Yeah. That's a photograph I took the last time I was at the Good Life. I said I would show the brother this week. I know that looks like somebody I know. I'm looking at right now. I'm not even going to mention their name. I'm not going to call them out. These pictures speak for themselves, right? That's how I really got interested in India. I was at UCLA, and I was in the library one Saturday afternoon, and I was thumbing through a series of books by British ethnographers and, anthropologists. And a series of these books were published in the early 1900s, and these pictures just knocked my eyes out. My colleague LeGrand Clegg used to tell me, he'd say, Renoko, you have to find a special area to focus on. You just can't generalize. And he put me on the spot, and he says, well, what area, if you were going to pick out one area that you were going to focus on, what would it be? And I said, well, man, I guess India. And I never regretted that. Now look at this brother right here. These are all from black folks in India. Now, yeah, it does look like a brother from Australia, doesn't it? You know, I was invited to speak in Australia from the 17th to the 20th of November. And I signed a contract to go and lecture in Egypt at that same time, beginning the same day. So I got to go. Now, some of these are untouchables, some of them are Dalits, some of them are tribal people, some of them are members of the other caste. Velu is going to break all that down. I'm just introducing the subject. And this is a Brahmin, and Velu can talk about Brahmanism. Now, let me talk about it briefly. Let me just explain. Now, here's what you got. You got 4 castes. And according to Hindu accounts, all the castes emanated from God's body. 4 major castes, and now you have thousands of subcastes. Now, the first one is called the Brahmins. And therefore, the religion is sometimes called Brahmanism. Sometimes we call it Brahmanism, and sometimes we call it Hinduism. And the chief deity that the Indo-Europeans introduced is called Brahma. And it is said in the Rig Veda, this early Hindu text, that from God's mouth issued forth the Brahmins. And the Brahmins are the priests of society, and they are identified with the color white. And then you have another group, although now obviously you have a handful of black Brahmins, like a blue moon, a handful. And then you have another part, and that group is called the Kshatriyas, and they came forth from the shoulders of God, and they were identified with the color red, and they were supposedly the soldiers and administrators in society. And then you have another group beneath them called the Vaishya, identified with the color yellow, and they are the merchant caste, the mercantile caste, and the farmers in society. They came from Brahma's thighs, and they were identified with the color yellow. And then after them, you have a group, the masses of conquered black people, called Shudras, identified obviously with the color black, and they came from the feet of God. And this is a story we did not write, edit, compose, none of that. Came from the feet of God, and they were to work for the upper caste, or the other caste, the Brahminical caste, and then the outcast. Now, I was showing Velu these slides earlier. He's staying with me until Sunday, and I'm very honored to be his host. And now this brother, he's from India. He's from South Central India. And I was showing him these slides. Yeah, South Central. I was showing him these slides, and he says, Rashidi, are these from Africa or are they from India? I said, Velu, man, what you asking me for, brother? These are from India. And he said, you sure you didn't slip some in there from Africa? Now, these are black folks, these are tribal people, right? No matter how many times I show these, they're still beautiful to me. Now look at that one right there. Now, you remember this piece? All right. Now, one of these really looks like my biological sister, the one right here. And these are tribal women from South Central India. Now look at that. And those, not only are they African women, but they're very beautiful photographs. This is Satya Sai Baba. And this is from the cover of the book. Now, she is the victim. Her husband was just murdered, and she's waiting to get his body, I guess, from this makeshift morgue. We get abused all over the world, but there's nothing that parallels this country right here. And again, what does this say? The outside world hardly knows that in India there's a 3,000-year-old problem called untouchability, and when you come to know the real facts, you will be in tears. Now, this is M.K. Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, M.K. Gandhi. Now, you know what I did not call him? Mahatma. Because the word Mahatma means great soul, and he is anything but that. Some people say he ain't got no soul, or at best, he's an ordinary soul, at best. And why would we say that? Because he had contempt for black people. He was not a man of nonviolence. He lacked integrity. And he did more to obstruct the progress of black people in India than anybody who has ever lived. He is considered the greatest enemy of black people in the history of Asia. That covers about 75,000 years. You got to have messed up real bad to be designated as such. Gandhi lived in South Africa for about 15 years. And while he was there, he started a newspaper. He organized the Indians in society. And the major reason for that is because he was resentful, because not only were Indians at that time, East Indians in South Africa, treated worse than the British, treated worse than the white folks, they were treated basically on an equal level with the black people. And Gandhi couldn't stand that. So he never made any effort to develop a relationship with black people in South Africa. He referred to black people as Kafirs, the South African equivalent of nigger. Not only that, but he went to war against black people with the British twice. In the Boer Wars and the Zulu Wars. Here's the cover of Velu's book, and we have all these available tonight, called Sergeant Major M.K. Gandhi. It has Gandhi in his own words what he said about black people, what he thought about black people, what he thought about untouchables. There's another book that we have written by a brother, and this is published in London, called Gandhi's Saint or Sinner. It has excerpts from Gandhi's writings in South Africa. And here he is. Here's your friend that gets trotted out on Martin Luther King's birthday every year. See, we don't know what we're doing. We just embrace a concept and run with it and don't know nothing about it. And then later on say, wow, I didn't know that. Standing on the edge. Now, this is Gandhi. This is your friend in the military uniform. There he is right there in the middle. Can you see him? Sergeant Major. Velu likes me to bash Gandhi. A smile comes over his face. And I don't mind. There he is again, right in the middle. Right in the middle. He organized an ambulance brigade twice. And he was so successful at it that he was awarded these 2 medals. That's Queen Victoria right there. That's your friend. Hot dog, boy, my turn to announce cars. A light blue Hyundai, not a Hyundai, a light blue Hyundai, Korean car, is blocking a car. Who's got a light blue Hyundai? Yeah, I'm expecting a dinner invitation because of that. Now, that's Queen Victoria. And here's a caricature of Gandhi, showing Gandhi the monster. Isn't that cool? I looked at that and just laughed hysterically. We need to really look at things critically. Some people still celebrate Columbus Day. Now, this is the counterpose to Gandhi. This is Bimrao Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar, Dr. Ambedkar, and they call him Baba Sahib. Right? And that's a sign of affection. He is the greatest leader the untouchables have had since the Buddha. So let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we're going to bring on our guest, our special guest. B.R. Ambedkar was born in April 1891, and in the state of Maharashtra. And at this time, a few changes had taken place, not necessarily for the better, but the British had come into India, and they didn't really make a distinction between Indians or not much of a distinction unless it was to their advantage. So they allowed untouchables to enter into the military. And when I use the word untouchable is one designation for these folks. Sometimes they're called outcasts, and sometimes they have individual names depending on the part of India they're from. For example, you have a group Velu is from, he's a pariah. You may have heard that word. That's in the dictionary. That's where the British got it from. Because these people were so much abused, the British were so struck by how oppressed they were, and to pick the right word, how oppressed they were, that they took the name from his family and put it in the dictionary. Okay? In other parts of India, they may be called Mahars or Chamars. Sometimes in the Indian Constitution, they're referred to as scheduled castes. Gandhi called them Harijans, a term which he says meant children of God, referring to them as bastards. Now, you had one person who challenged all of that, and his name was Ambedkar. He, when he was a young person, his brilliance was noticed. His father was in the military, so he had an opportunity to go to school, although as I understand it, sometimes he had to sit outside the classroom to get his lessons, because he's an untouchable. No matter how brilliant you are, no matter how fat your bank book is, you're an untouchable, which means you are inferior, and that never goes away. So he read, like Marcus Garvey, my main man of the 20th century, who would compare favorably with any of the pharaohs of Kemet. This brother stands right there with him, along with Kwame Nkrumah. He read Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington, and he was inspired by that. And he came to the United States. He went to Columbia University. In fact, he was in the United States, I believe, briefly at the same time Marcus Garvey was there. And I think also Ho Chi Minh was there at that time. And he left Columbia, and he went to England. He was able to get a law degree. And he went back to India, the most brilliant man of his time, and he was still treated as untouchable. He was given a position in, I guess, the government, and the law clerks wouldn't handle his legal briefs. They wouldn't touch him. And when he would leave, they would wipe the doorknob off. Or when he got ready to come up, they would remove the carpet so he wouldn't walk on it. It's the most brilliant man in India. This is the man who was so bad that even though in spite of the fact he was an untouchable, he was the only person qualified to write the Indian Constitution. And this is a statue of him, I believe, either in Bangalore or Hyderabad, or the city of Hyderabad. And he is a revered figure. He died in, 1956? 56. And the last slide I'll show is the office of the Dalit Panthers. Now, traditionally, the Dalits have been taught, the term Dalit means crushed, broken, and oppressed. Some people say it means suppressed tiger. And it is a name that refers to, this is what conscious untouchables call themselves. See, we use the word deliberately untouchable, although it's an offensive word, because that speaks to the actual condition of the people. If you use the word Dalit, or scheduled caste, or Harijan, you're not going to know what a person's talking about. But when you use the word untouchable, that says a lot. That says that their touch will contaminate you or pollute you, if you believe that foolishness. And they've always taught to be very docile. Not many insurrections in India on their part, because they've been so abused and so oppressed. But now, you got another brother over there, another sister over there, another African over there. And they don't take no mess. Now you have a group called the Dalit Panthers. They named themselves directly after the Black Panther Party. And a group called the Dalit, yeah, that's right. See, we need to understand the impact that we have on other black people around the world. People are checking us out. And when we come off, as Jamal and Astana would say, as buffoons and clowns, people check that out. And when we come across the strong black men and women revolutionaries ready to do whatever is necessary to be free, they check that out. So they're checking that out now, and they're emulating that. Very important to be able to tell those Black Panthers, their families, of those who were murdered by J. Edgar Hoover, and those like Geronimo Pratt who were unjustly imprisoned, that their labors were not in vain, that they lived and died and are living for something, and their impact is spread around the world. We are talking about doing things that are so significant, deeds that will live long after we are physically gone. That's called ma'at. That's the work of God. It may bring you heartache and suffering, but it is what you know you must do because you know better. If you're just ignorant and don't know any better, that's one thing. But once you come into consciousness, brothers and sisters, you have a responsibility to act on that. Otherwise, you got to live with yourself. And that's a hell of a thing. So this is the office of the Dalit Panther Party in Bombay, India. So brothers and sisters, with that, we're going to bring on our special guest. But as a means of introducing him, we are going to collect a donation. His brother flew out here on his own, paid for his own plane ticket out of his pocket, rented a car out of his pocket, and stayed at my pad out of my pocket, right? Because he loves what he does and he loves us. Now, we got the process of the last 15 years since I've been doing this work, calling myself an African historian. The best thing that's happened to me is the people that I've interacted with, some of the wonderful people that I've had a chance to meet. I'm always quick to acknowledge the fact that this is not an individual thing, this is a collective thing. Nobody can do this by themselves, and we really need each other. We really do. And nobody's work should be minimized. We have different jobs to do, but the jobs complement each other. They do not compete and contrast. Okay? And so I'm very grateful to everyone who has come out tonight, who gave what they could, who decided not to watch the Olympic Games, or at least to, tape it on the VCR and come out and do this, that sort of thing, because we have a special guest. His name is Dr. Velu Anamale. He was born in South India, near the city of Madras, in a village of about 2,000 people. And the day he was born, his mother told him that he was inferior. And she taught him how to act because she wanted to keep him alive, so he could be here with us today. He's going to deal with issues like, who are the Dalits or the black untouchables? Did you know that there are more than 160 million black untouchables in India today, more than the combined populations of, check this out, of several countries? There are more untouchables in India than the combined populations of England, France, Belgium, and Spain. He's going to talk about why the Dalits or the black untouchables consider Gandhi the greatest enemy to African people in Asia. He left India. He was one of the fortunate few. He went to school in Germany. He became an engineer, and he lives in Houston, Texas now. I met Velu about 5 or 6 years ago through a mutual friend that I had met in India in 1987. And he said, man, if you want to meet the baddest Dalit, the baddest untouchable in North America, you need to talk to Velu Anamale. And having met him within a very few minutes, I was convinced that that guy knew what he was talking about. Velu is very passionate. He believes in what he's doing. He stays broke because he's trying to educate people when sometimes it seems that nobody else is even listening. I was so pleased at the response that we got on KJLH and KPFK and the amount of people who called me, because I myself have been feeling very burned out. Okay? And I begin to almost come to the conclusion, maybe nobody really cares about this. So you're here tonight. Your presence here demonstrates that you do care. He is the president of an organization called the International Dalit Support Group. He is a compiler of this book, Sergeant Major M.K. Gandhi. He contributed photographs to this book, Dalit, the Black Untouchables of India. I contributed the afterword. He contributed to this book right here, The African Presence in Early India. He's a hard-working brother. He's a revolutionary. He's a black man. And he's our dear brother from India. So would you please rise and give a very warm ovation to Dr. Velu Anamale. Come on, y'all can do a little better than that. You want to make the brother feel welcome. And see what I think about untouchability, right? Now, and he's a short brother like me, so we got a lot in common, right? We both wear glasses. And by the way, there's a white Ford Toyota blocking somebody else. Ford Taurus, okay? Brother Velu, take it over, brother.
What's up, brothers and sisters? I want to thank you all for inviting me, especially Brother Noko, and such a wonderful audience. About 6 years back, when Brother Noko and myself first time joined together and gave a presentation in Dallas, I was the only, at that time they called me non-black. I was sitting there, everybody staring at me. What is this guy was doing here? It's a black organization, it's a Melanin Conference. I could almost embarrassed, so everybody's looking at me. So once we finished talking, everybody came and embarrassed me. Everybody came and hugged me and kissed me and cheered me up. The reason is people didn't know the history. As a matter of fact, when I came to this country in 1969, I knew who I was. So every time I used to see an African American, I used to smile. I never got a smile back. And I wasn't mad. I only felt bad because people didn't know our history. When people talk about, as Brother Roka said, the black people or African people, very rarely people think about India. Very, very rarely. It's extremely unusual if someone says, yeah, I've heard about it. They've heard the word untouchables. They've heard caste system, but they've never heard the word black untouchables till about maybe 10 years back. And the credit entirely goes to my dear brother Noko. And I think I should acknowledge publicly because without him, the word Dalit wouldn't have been popularized in this country. And everywhere he goes, he talks about Dalits. I think that is because the way he was moved when he went to India. Until unless you see something, it is difficult to understand and appreciate. Okay. And even when someone says, what is untouchability? It is just like apartheid or like slavery in this country. No. There's a vast, vast difference between being an untouchable and being a slave. Most of the time, slave is a physical slavery. They make you work like a dog. They make you work like a pig. Physical oppression. But this unique oppression in India, it's a mental oppression, mental torture. The minute you're born, you're told you're useless, you're worthless. If someone touches you or you touch someone, a pollution being created. To the point that not only you don't love yourself, you start hating yourself, being ashamed of yourself. And that's exactly happened when I was a little boy. I came from a little village. Let me go back a little bit. India is a vast country. There are about close to 1 billion people now. 950 every day, another million is added. Okay, and that's how the oppressors want to keep the system. More people they have, more people they can oppress, more people they can exploit. So there is a reason why they want the poor people, so they can exploit. If they have less people, then they have less free labor. So it is obvious why they want the population to grow, and most of them are ignorant illiterates. So there's easy way to exploit. So 80% of Indians live in villages, and most of the villages are small villages, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. And villages, every caste are segregated. So it is easy to distinguish one from the other. Who is an untouchable? Who is a Brahmin? Or who is in between? So you cannot even hide your identity because everybody knows. On top of that, because I've been indoctrinated from day one that I'm an untouchable, and I've already accepted my position, gladly, I'm not going to even try to act differently. Because if I do, most of the time, either my head won't be on my shoulder, or my wife will be raped, or my mother will be raped, or my child will be killed, or my hut will be burnt. So obviously, I'm not going to try to act other than what I'm supposed to be acting. So this is the reason in India, the untouchables or the caste system is intact. I want to go back a little bit historically to explain what a caste system is. Brother Ranoko explained pretty much the history, so I'm not going to touch upon that. When the Aryans, the nomadic barbarians came into India, they were looking for food. They traveled all the way from Central Asia. They were looking around where they can find food. When they saw a bunch of black people with highly civilized, obviously they wanted to take over. And it took a long time for them to conquer. But while they were doing it, they wanted to make sure to keep their racial separation. They were white and the people in India were black. So they created a system to keep that racial segregation separate. So they kept the white people for education, priests, all the warriorship, the important things among themselves, and kept all the slave type of jobs to the local black people. So this unique system, as Brother Ranoko said, it is called Varna. Varnashrama Dharma. I'm sure many people would have heard the word Dharma. Dharma is duty. So Varna is color. So color-based duty. The critical thing here is what job, duty they gave to the local black people. I'll go back a little bit again. The word Shudra, Brother Ranoko mentioned. Shudra means slaves. The black people can be divided into three segments. When the white man came and started conquering the indigenous black people, one segment of people surrendered. After everybody fought, then to a stage, they threw the towel, as they say, and surrendered. Those were the people called Shudras, and they were included in the caste system as a compliment, as a contribution to their obedience. Yeah, so they became part of the caste system. They're called the fourth caste. Their function is to serve the first three white caste. Another segment of people fought and ran away to the forest. And they are the tribals, as we call them. And some of the pictures Brother Ranoko showed. And even today, they maintain the African culture, features, everything. The in-between, another group, kept fighting, never surrender. They were forced to surrender. In order to punish them, they told them that you are untouchables. And you got to live outside the village. And your duty is to clean the streets, clean the bathrooms, carry the dead animals. Not only carry the dead animals, you're supposed to eat the dead animals. Everything filthy or quote unquote polluting. Because you are doing all these jobs, you are untouchables. The touch of a person is pollution. As a matter of fact, if I were to touch quote Brahman, he has to go and take a ceremonial bath to cleanse the pollution that I have created. So these are the main caste. But as I said, untouchables are not part of the caste system. Because there is only 4 varnas. The 3 white varnas and the 4th Shudra varna. The untouchables are outside the varna system. And that is the reason why we hear the word outcast. They're not part of the caste system. But they indoctrinated the outcasts for a long period of time to follow their religious system so they all can feel they're part of the caste system so that they can serve them. In what is the white people did, I think that's one of the most brilliant in the evil sense. Okay, they created this caste system. They wanted to keep this racial separation. They didn't know how to do it because they need to have sets of rules, right? They started writing rules, and they call that a religion. The Hindu religion is nothing but codes and rules and regulations to protect the Varna system or the caste system.
One more time. Somebody wants to know if the owner of a white Chevrolet pickup can move over slightly so they can get out.
Thank you. So if originally there is no word, the Hindu religion, the name is a very recent name. 8th century, 9th century, before that, the word Hindu was not even in existence. Either we call them Varnashrama Dharma or we call them Brahminism. Meaning, you agree or you accept the superiority of the Brahmins. So Brahminism. So this religion has been indoctrinated to all these different segments of people that God ordained you to be in a particular position in life. And that is where they introduce another term called karma. Many of you have heard the name karma. Karma means what you are today in this life is because what you did in a previous life. So it's your own fault being an untouchable. So it is not my fault I'm calling you untouchable. No, it is your fault that you are untouchables. Then they went one step further. If you do not obey your duty as an untouchable, the next life is going to be worst. Because that is the karma theory, front and back. And this person has been refused to educate himself. He never had education. He was denied education, denied property. He was poor. So he believes the more the poor you are, the more you generally tend to believe all the superstitious things. So this guy actually believed that I should have been one hell of a bad guy to be born an untouchable. So what's my next goal? Try to climb up my ladder. So what do? I become a wonderful slave, an excellent untouchable. Not only I don't question why I'm an untouchable, but to be better myself in my next life, I do my duties so beautifully, so with a smiling face. I'm an excellent untouchable. That's the only way I can improve myself. So what am I going to do? How am I going to fight my system? No, I can't fight it. On top of that, what they do, not only they had caste, the 4 major divisions, they created subcaste. Among each caste, they created several divisions, including among untouchables. If I were just sweeping the street, I became one subcaste. And Brother Noko is carrying dead animals, he becomes a separate caste, even though both are untouchables. And then they told me that I'm a superior untouchable than him because he is touching the dead body. So then what I do, I don't go to his house to eat. I don't let my daughter marry his son. So we are fighting with each other. And there is no way both can join together and fight my perpetrator. No way. So this has been going on for 3,500 years. And that's the brother V.T. Rajshekhar, who has written this book, calls the untouchables in India the slaves enjoying slavery. That's exactly true. That's exactly true. Because in villages even today, if you go there, I went to my village last year. I was still treated as an untouchable. Even though I drove into the village in a car, Everybody says, oh, that pariah guy is going. Because that has been stamped on me from the day I was born. This man who wrote the Constitution of India, highest learned person in India, even today, still he was called an untouchable. Because this is a unique system. This system is no comparison to anything. Everybody says, well, South Africa, we had apartheid. But just imagine for a minute, compare and contrast, or slavery in this country. The white man kitchen was occupied by our people. We cooked their meals. We took care of their kids. We cleaned their house. We did all the work. The thing is the physical labor. They abused us, yes. But in India, the untouchable cannot even enter the street where these Brahminical castes live. We cannot even, live alone going to the house. There is a little narrow path, side of the village, away from the settlement. The Brahmin walks this direction, I'm walking, I better step aside. If I don't do it, I'm in trouble. Because it's going to pollute him. So this is untouchable, many times unapproachable, unshadowable. As Brother Noko mentioned about the temple, that temple is in my village. When I went last year, I asked him, I said, these stones are still there? He said, yes. See, the God is in the center, then they have wall around the temple. From the wall, outside the wall, about 20-30 feet, then you have series of stones. And we cannot go inside the stone. Because our shadows will fall on this wall, which would pollute the God. But this is the system has been going on for a long time. So there is a major difference between any other slavery system. As a matter of fact, even today, I don't know, I'm completely off my self-hate or self-esteem, lack of self-esteem, because it has been there from day one. It is a mental thing. It is not a physical thing. And that is the reason I call the caste system is a mental disease. Today, you see a lot of Indians living in this country. You wouldn't, if I walked with another Indian, you wouldn't know the difference between me and the other person, most likely. You can't. I can probably distinguish certain people because the Brahmins, so-called Brahmins, the original Aryans, they have light skin to a certain extent. But then there are light skin Dalits too. Okay? So it is difficult to distinguish. But in spite of the fact, I'm not able to completely rip myself off and remove the self-esteem and the lack of self-esteem, lack of self-love, because that has been there from day one. This is the disease. This disease has never been created in any part of the world. This is the uniqueness of the Aryans. As a matter of fact, the word varna, which is race, a color, was the first time invented in the world. Racism was invented in India, nowhere else. I don't know how many of you know that. Racism is invented, racism, segregation, oppression, everything is invented in India. 3,500 years back, 4,000 years back. But today, if you talk to someone from India, you'll get an entirely different picture. Entirely different picture. Okay. Brother Runoko touched upon one point about sati, that is when a husband dies, the wife also has to die. And the reason Brother Runoko said, one of the reasons, so she can serve her husband in the next life, that is only part of the story. The real story is, when the husband dies, a young wife is widow, sooner or later she wants to get married again. And there are not enough Brahmins out there, and most of the Brahmins wouldn't marry a widow anyway. So what she's going to do? She's going to jump ship and marry somebody else. They want to stop that. They did not want their women to marry from the other caste. What do? Kill them. That is one of the things they did. Number two, the child marriage is very prevalent in India. Even today, they marry the children when they're 8, 7, 10. You know why? So they won't ask any questions. Right? Otherwise, if they let them go away, they can say 18, 20, they'll go to college, they'll find somebody else, they can intermarriage. That is the reason why these child marriage started. Everything they did to keep their race separate. Have you seen many Indians when they wish, they do like this, right? You know why? So they don't have to touch somebody. That is the basis. That is the origin of why you wish somebody like this. Because they wouldn't know who the other person is. So why take a chance and get polluted? Even though this sign has been picked up by different things, different religions, but this is the origin. This is the origin. So that you don't take a chance of touching somebody. I think I've probably explained enough, and I want to go to, I think one brother's already asked a question about Gandhi. Go for it. Go for it. That's my favorite subject. I call him M.K. Gandhi. His full name is Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. And many people ask me, what is Gandhi? Is his last name? No, that's his caste name. It is very common in India. People attach their caste name as their last name. They're so proud of their caste, or proud of the caste system. Even in this country, if you look at a lot of Indians, they have their caste attached to them. So you can see how racist they are. And that is the reason I said Gandhi is a racist all the way. Okay. I guess I need to read some of the quotes. Where's the book, brother? Gandhi book. What I wanted to really emphasize here, what Gandhi, not necessarily what Gandhi did to the black people in India, because that is afterwards. But what he did to the black people in South Africa, that is very important. That pains me more than anything when I see Gandhi being glorified every year when Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday is celebrated. It not only pains me, it bleeds, my heart bleeds. Number one, they refused to listen to me. I called them up, sent literature. As a matter of fact, 3 years back, the local Hindus, the Brahminical Hindus in Atlanta, they have money power. They have a lot of money. Most of the Indians are businessmen and doctors. And so they wanted to rename a street, African American street, in Atlanta as Gandhi Street. So thank goodness we have some conscious African American brothers and sisters in Atlanta. And I called them up, sent them information. They were able to stop it. But till the last minute there, the city council had a special hearing before they could do a renaming. So the Hindus were all ready with the champagne bottles. And our brothers and sisters went there and just blasted up. And the city council said, forget it. We can't rename the street. You know. So they dropped the idea of renaming the street. So we all celebrated. But Mrs. King, I believe, is so mad, so upset. So she said I would somehow bring Gandhi's name somewhere. And right now she is in the process of converting one of the streets within the King Center. And not only that, she has a room in the King Center called Gandhi Room. But the reason, if nothing else, I want to say one statement that Gandhi made is that we have to prove our patriotism to the Queen. And we are talking about 1915, 16, by killing the Zulus. This is his quote. Isn't it enough? I mean, do we need to know more about it? And he has said several times about keeping the racial segregation. He said, the British cannot force us to live with the local people. Kafir, that's the word he uses. He doesn't even use the word blacks. And you all saw that movie, right, Gandhi? Yeah. And the very prominent scene was when he was thrown out of a train compartment. And it was implied that he was mad that the British were treating all the black people, they're segregating the different compartments. The fact of the matter is he was so mad because he was being treated as a black man. That's all he was worried about. He was not worried about black people being treated bad. And several times, I think one time he said such obnoxious things about blacks, that the only thing the black man wants to do is to catch some cattle and get a wife, and then the rest of his life he lives naked. These are the documents. These are one of the book, Sinner, a Saint or Sinner. You could see the whole book is written of South Africa on this Gandhi. And here they're parading Gandhi as a saint. Not only saint, non-violent. Where did we get this word non-violence? This guy didn't even know how to spell non-violence. Because non-violence, if you want to know who invented non-violence, go back to Africa. That is where non-violence was invented. That's where people are non-violent. Go to India, the Indus Valley Civilization. There were people non-violent. But this guy who practiced